All right, so let's go and get started. So it has been a crazy past 24 hours in the markets. I was trying to keep everyone updated last night, posted a market update in Gym Hunters, and basically posted some reasons why the market was dropping. So we'll go and reiterate those today and kind of take an overview of where we're at right now. So looking at total liquidations right now, you can see 24 hours, over $1.2 billion were liquidated over the past 24 hours. You can see here, 287,000 traders were liquidated. The largest single liquidation order happened on Huobi at a BTC value of 27 million. So that's insane how much liquidations we saw. You go to my Twitter, I actually posted that the last time we had this many liquidations was during the FTX collapse and how that actually marked the bottom. And at the very least, we did have a bounce, which was great to see. So it just kind of shows you guys that during the time when there's the most capitulation, you always got to look at the broad overview, zoom out, and look at how it compares to previous crashes we've had in the market and what happened after that. So that was a big data point I was looking at. It's crazy to see it got, up to 1.2 billion. So just goes to show, how much FUD and how much all this bad news can actually contribute to people trying to catch a falling knife, over leverage. So that's why I always preach, do not leverage, guys. Stay away from that. Even 2x, I mean, maybe you're safe with 2x in a sense, but still, just be careful on leverage. But some of the reasons why this happens, so obviously when there's tensions in the Middle East and the Japan yen carry trade with them raising interest rates, which I'll go over a little bit as well. But we started seeing some companies actually selling large amounts of crypto. So you can see here posted by Ran. He said, I'm watching this selling by jump trading on Arkham Intel, and it's not natural. They're the smartest traders in the world. Why are they selling so fast on a Sunday with low liquidity? I would imagine they are being liquidated or have an urgent obligation. So again, jump trading, for those who don't know, I'll go ahead and pull up their Twitter account. But basically, they're a big trading institution, and you can see here that basically they haven't tweeted in a while, but they do have a lot of money and they do have a lot of funds. And for them to actually be selling, I think they moved over $300 million worth of Ethereum and other crypto. So they started selling, which again kind of caused another cascade of people speculating what's going on. So just one of those things just to add fuel to the fire. And then you can see here that, again, there's still FUD about the U.S. government moving crypto as well. That was something that was kind of still lingering in the background. But one thing that was actually good on that front was a lot of people were buying the FUD. Okay, so for anyone who's not following invest_answers, highly, highly recommend it. The guy's super smart and he has a lot of good data. I love to look at the data that he's posting. So one of the biggest things he was posting was whenever Mr. 100 buys Bitcoin. And Mr. 100 is actually Upbit's cold storage wallet. Upbit is one of the biggest Korean exchanges. But basically, whenever they buy their Bitcoin or sell it, it usually marks the temporary bottoms or tops. And they were DCAing this whole way. They were DCAing, I think, at 53K and then even lower. And it goes to show you here just today that we got up to, I believe, over 55K and, they were in profit. So you have to look at what the big whales are doing. That's what I always preach, guys. I always preach, one, look at the ETF inflows or outflows, because that's going to show you, are the institutions actually buying during that dip or not? And then look at what the smart wallet addresses are doing. So I know Spider, I know Smart Money Crypto, all those guys, they're always tracking the smart wallets. So always look at that, because when people are selling, the whales are buying. So just keep an eye on that. But this is just another tool to use and another data point to keep you level-headed whenever the market is crashing. Now, next, there's also some other news. So if you aren't following Watcher Guru, he's another great guy that posts a lot of good news updates. And he says, just in, Europe's fourth largest hedge fund, Capital Management, discloses $500 million in spot Bitcoin ETF holdings. So this is going to be something that's more and more common. So there's always more of these institutions that are announcing their Bitcoin holdings. And people think that institutions aren't buying Bitcoin. I was on the Spaces actually yesterday with Mario Noel. It was over 9,000 people listening, and I was posting, there's a guy that was saying he didn't think that crypto would last or Bitcoin would last. It was like the tulip bubble. And I was saying, one, I read Luke's post on there about Bitcoin that he posted, but also I said, guys, Bitcoin is actually a way to basically break away from the banks, because if you try to withdraw $20,000 in cash from your bank, they're going to ask you why you're doing it. They're going to make you fill out a form. It's going to take a week. Whereas Bitcoin, you just do it in less than 10 minutes. So that's the thing where people want to become their own bank. They don't want to be tied to the strings of the financial institutions, the banks, and controlled by the government. So again, Bitcoin is here to stay, and you're seeing that with all these institutions buying, with these ETFs being passed, with all of these people such as BlackRock talking about tokenizing the blockchain. I mean, there's so many things going on. So it doesn't even surprise me as more and more of these institutions and banks are announcing their Bitcoin ETF holdings. So just one thing to keep a level head again, as a lot of people are getting into crypto. So don't let people shake you out and say, no, Bitcoin is just a fad. The proof is in the pudding. It's been here for 15 years. It's not going anywhere. So looking at another article posted, you can see here, just to reiterate that, BlackRock, Fidelity, Grayscale, and MicroStrategy have not sold their Bitcoin despite the market crash. So this was something that was posted less than 2 hours ago. So again, just reiterating what I said, look at what the institutions are doing, because that's what's going to tell you what the whales are doing and what things are going on behind the scenes. So always look at the data, always keep a level head there. Now, one last thing that people, has been causing FUD is basically Kamala Harris rising in the polls. So if you actually search, I'll go ahead and put Kamala, and Predict It is actually a prediction platform that measures, it's like a betting platform, basically what most people use. Polymarket is what the crypto people use, but Predict It is what most people use. And you can see here that Kamala has actually been rising in the polls. This was from July 31st. She's actually higher now. But her rising in the polls is actually bearish for crypto, because people were betting on Trump winning the presidency, which I still think he is. But again, perception is reality for a lot of people. And if they think Kamala's going to win, you can even see here that now she is above it, right? So 52 cents means more people think she's going to win versus Trump. So if people think Kamala's going to win versus Trump, who was actually pro-crypto, then they're going to be bearish on crypto, right? So that's another thing that was contributing. But again, that wasn't the main cause of the crash that we just saw. Talking about what caused the main crash is here. So it says on CNBC, investors are unwinding the biggest carry trade the world has ever seen. SocGen strategist says. It says a rapid unloading of carry trades extended on Monday, with market participants seeking to roll back on the popular trading strategy amid a dramatic global sell-off. And now, for carry trade, because a lot of people don't understand this, basically what happens is the Bank of Japan had very low interest rates, basically near zero. And out of nowhere, they actually raised their interest rates quite a lot. So I believe it was 0.1 or 0.01, and they raised it to 0.25. Now, the thing is, people actually borrow money from the Bank of Japan, they lend them, and then they buy treasuries or things in the US that have a higher yield than the interest rate that they're borrowing from. And they do it on leverage. So in essence, let's say they're leveraging with 10x leverage or more. Well, if you change the interest rates from 0.1 or 0.01 to 0.25, you multiply that by 10, and that's actually going to be higher change, or even times 100, right? So that's going to give people more risk. Therefore, people know they're going to have to repay back those loans, and they're on higher interest rates. Therefore, the spread that they're getting is tightening. So they end up unwinding their positions, selling their positions. And that's what we saw across the board. We saw the stock markets unwind. We saw crypto unwind. Basically, a ton of cash flowed out of the market because people were worried that they weren't going to be able to pay back those carry trades, and the spreads were decreasing. So carry trade is the main factor of this whole unwind. It's something that a lot of people were thinking it was Middle East. Obviously, Middle East added to that, but I believe the carry trade was the unwinding of the carry trade was the biggest cause here. And it says, quote, "You can't unwind the biggest carry trade in the world has ever seen without breaking a few heads. That is the impression markets give us in the morning." So, yeah. So, guys, that's why it pays to pay attention to the financial markets and international markets and what's going on, because what happens in the international markets affects what happens in the US, crypto, stock market, etc. So always look at what's going on in the world, because it's going to affect your bottom dollar at the end of the day. So read up on carry trades if you guys still need to understand it more. But yeah, whenever Japan increased their interest rates, it kind of had a cascading effect across all risk assets. And then next, I talked about the war. So foreign citizens urged to leave Lebanon as soon as possible as regional tensions spike. So this is something that unfortunately was happening at the same time as the unwinding of the carry trade was happening, and all on a low liquidity weekend. So Iran has been stating that one, they're getting ready for war and expect something big. And basically, they've been building up that, they're going to attack Israel or they're going to help Hezbollah, whatever on that aspect. So basically, people around the area have urged their citizens to leave, such as Lebanon. And Israel actually started they started fortifying their bunker that they built and started getting that ready for a lot of their government officials. And that's something that's used during periods of war and even nuclear war. So Israel getting their bunker ready, combined with Iran saying they're declaring war, combined with Lebanon getting their citizens out. I mean, it was a whole cascade of events that was causing a lot of FUD in the market. And again, that combined with the carry trade, along with just crypto in general, breaking support levels, people thinking Kamala's going to win presidency. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on that just added to the whole events of what we saw over the past 12 hours. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. I assume that the tensions are going to ease. I assume that the U.S. is going to step in and say, hey guys, let's calm down. And again, they already have warships over there. The U.S. sent warships over there, sent 4,000 troops over there. And the U.S. is basically posturing right now as a deterrence mechanism. So that's something that the U.S. does. They'll send their aircraft, their ships, their troops, and basically say, hey, if anything happens, we're ready to respond. So that usually is what they call an escalate to de-escalate strategy by the military. So that's something that the U.S. did. Knock on wood. Hopefully it works. But yeah, so a lot of tensions right now. So you can see why a lot of people were scared recently. And then again, this is just another thing. Netanyahu vows retaliation against Hezbollah after a weekend strike as U.S. warns against escalation. So this is another thing that was July 29th. We talked about last week, but again, just more tensions as they rose. And then after that, looking at the S&P gold and futures, oil futures. So the S&P had a huge drop. And we drew these weekly trend lines. It bounced perfectly off this 5150 level. It's currently at 5200. So you can see how much the weekly RSI dropped. It's below that 50 level right now, which is good. Okay, we needed a reset. We had this bearish divergence. All the top 7 stocks were at extreme levels. So in a way, this helped us to reset the market before continuing higher. You can see right now, gold had a huge spike because it is a risk-off asset and something people use to hedge against the markets. And we saw that it did get above this level, this resistance of 2420, all the way to a high of 2480. But since then, you can see it's gone back to the downside as people actually go more risk on. So that's something as well that's positive to see, again, for crypto and just the markets in general. And you can see here on crude oil. So crude oil, interestingly enough, ended up basically declining this whole time. So people actually were not fearful, or there wasn't anything in the economy that basically caused the crude oil to rise, which would, again, increase interest rates and be bad for us in general. So it's good to see that crude oil did not reflect what was going on in the S&P and the gold. And it's nice to see that, again, we are trending lower here. I would expect a small bounce once we get to the $70 level. But until then, good to see in the markets with that. Now, next, let's look at the flows, the ETF flows. So you can see on August 2nd, the flows were outflows of 237 million. So this is something as well that there was some uncertainty and there was basically some low liquidity in the market. So we had a lot of chop, and we saw that with the outflows of the institutions. But again, remember, August 2nd, this was when Bitcoin was a lot higher, right? So now that Bitcoin's a lot lower, I expect today we'll see these ETF inflows be a lot higher. So keep an eye on this for today. I expect we'll definitely see some positive inflows here. And then looking at Ethereum. So Ethereum here is a similar story. We did have outflows, but the good thing is the Ethereum outflows have actually been consistently decreasing. So you can even see here Grayscale's ETH. Before they started out strong, okay, 484 million of outflows, 326, 346, etc. But then since then, it's gone all the way down to $61 million worth of outflows. So that's something you want to see, okay? You want to see outflows continuing to decrease from Grayscale, and then hopefully inflows continuing to increase from everyone else. So be very interested to see what we see today on the flows. And then also, again, just a standard daily reminder, anytime you have a huge number of inflows, such as 800 million plus, expect a pullback. Anytime you have a huge number of outflows, such as 600 million, expect a reversal to the upside. So again, just keeping that as a reminder to myself and to you guys. So whenever you see these large amounts of inflows or outflows, usually expect a reversal one way or the other. And then here we already talked about, posted on my Twitter account, over 1 billion in liquidations. Haven't seen these numbers since the FTX collapse. Curious to see what the Fed announces. I think the Fed saying they have an emergency meeting, I believe that was just a rumor, and I don't think that happened. I'll have to double check on that today. But either way, again, just kind of something reiterating about all the metrics that I was looking at and why I believed that a bottom was near. So just something to always keep you guys level-headed on what's going on in the market. But looking at the quarterly returns and the monthly returns, so historically, we've seen August is historically, call it a bearish month. You know, you can see here, since 2013, August 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times out of 11, it has been red, okay? With average returns are still positive, plus 2.3%, with the median returns being negative 6%. So August has historically been bearish, so this is no surprise, the recent action. Even though it's been bearish, though, we still have a ways to go before Bitcoin does reclaim where it was before the drop. So I do believe that, you know, we could still have some chop during August, and most likely we will see that. But we'll start to see things ramp up September and really in Q4, because those are historically, as you can see, bullish months. So just kind of survive until we get to Q4. I believe that's when we'll see a lot of good fireworks on that end. But again, it'll be interesting to see what happens, especially leading up to the election. So this is an election year. So watching this very, very closely. And again, you could see last election year, August was positive, right? So that's something to keep in mind as well. But again, in 2016, it was negative. So it could go either way. But Q4, I believe, will be very, very bullish. And then looking at the hash rate here, so we can see hash rate obviously has had a pullback since miners aren't as profitable, aren't contributing their resources. But I expect we will see this start to reverse as the market kind of lets itself breathe a little bit, as tensions ease, and as we get some more clarity on what's going on with the Bank of Japan, interest rates, if the federal government's going to do a stimulus or what's going to happen with that. A stimulus would be good short term. It wouldn't be good long term. But you never know, especially with the election coming up, the federal government could inject a stimulus. I think that'd probably be the best quote unquote Band-Aid, because if we did introduce a interest rate cut, then that would kind of exacerbate what's going on with the carry trade, because then that spread would be even less versus what people are getting from the Bank of Japan and the US. So just something to keep in mind on that end as well, the negative aspect of an interest rate cut from the Fed. And then looking at the market here, let's go ahead and refresh to get a good view. So we have Bitcoin at 54,500. You can even see that we had that huge bounce. So during the peak FUD, Bitcoin dropped down to 49,200. And we were looking at 50 to 52,000 as my lowest level on my last Jim Hunter's Alpha post. And you can see it did bounce nicely off that so far. So tentatively, I do think we do have this dead cat bounce remains for the next couple days. Are the lows in? It's hard to say right now, again, after what's going on in the Middle East and the Japan interest rates. So gonna have to see what happens with that. But I do think we do have temporary relief here for a few days. Now looking at the chains, so go ahead and refreshing this. So TVL is obviously down across the board. People were taking their money out. People were investing in stables, and people were basically, you know, taking a risk off approach. So looking at the top ones here, you can see that, again, most are in the red. Now, looking at the top 10 and what is the least red out of the majors, I would say, I mean, you could say Polygon, Tron, but really, I mean, looking at Solana, BSC, really there's not much here. I mean, everything's down double digits for the most part. So I would just say look for inflows to increase over the next few days as investors gain confidence back. But it definitely did shake a lot of people out. But we do know the historic quote by Warren Buffett is buy when others are fearful, sell when they're greedy. So all these outflows, I expect there'll be inflows over the next few days. And a big one was Nero. So Nero is actually one of the coins that was showing the most strength during the drop. I believe it was one of the only coins that was positive during the drop we had last night. And I know Luke's talked about Nero as well. During the peak FUD, it actually fell down to about 100 million market cap. And since then, it's 174. So it's went up over 70% since the peak FUD of last night. So I just want to tell you guys, look at coins that demonstrate strength, whether it's meme coins, whether it's fundamental coins, doesn't matter. look at coins that are demonstrating strength because those will bounce the hardest whenever we reverse. And that's exactly what happened with Nero. And this is the one on Ethereum. So again, just pays to look at the market and see what's going on and what shows strength on that aspect. Now, the Fear and Greed Index is at 26. So 26 is actually the level that it got down to back on the last little crash we had in beginning of July. So that was right before the attempted assassination of President Trump. And that was when there was peak fear in the market as well. So, and then before that, something interesting, which I did post about a couple weeks back during this time, was the last time we were at that 26 level was actually during that December 2022 era, whenever Bitcoin was at 16,000 before it had its massive run. So I know people say the Fear and Greed Index is a lagging indicator, it's not as accurate, yada, yada. But guys, you got to look at sentiment, right? Because people always look at sentiment as far as deciding, how risk on or how risk off the market is and how valuable, or I should say how much value it's going to provide by buying Bitcoin versus others. And if something is overpriced or underpriced, okay? Again, I mentioned buy when people are fearful, sell when they're greedy, because you can see that this measures volatility, market momentum, social media, dominance, and trends. And if everyone is fearful and everyone's selling and capitulating, well, what do you think the big people are doing? They're buying. So that's why I still look at the Fear and Greed Index. I still think even though it's a lagging indicator, it's still a great sentiment indicator in terms of how deep it's pulled back from the greed that we had, as well as how much potential we still have for some further price appreciation over the next few days and weeks. So in my opinion, it's still a great measurement. It's still something I look at every day, and I believe everyone should be doing as well. And then now let's go ahead and look at technical analysis. So in my post on Twitter, I posted about the Bitcoin dominance being near its resistance level, which does trigger an alt season. So looking here on the 1 week, you can see that it got very close to approaching this 57.8% level of resistance. Now, zooming out here, the reason why I'm looking at this resistance so heavily is because the last time it was at this level, it used it as support. Whenever Bitcoin dominance bounces as support, you have alts chop or decline. And so because Bitcoin is outperforming them on a return basis. Now, when you saw Bitcoin dominance drop in March to April of 2021, that's when you saw ETH rise over 150% over the next 8 months versus Bitcoin. You can even see here, when we rejected this level on June of 2022, ETH rose 60% versus Bitcoin over 3 months. So now you have this long-term trend line combined with the horizontal trend line. I'm watching this area as resistance very closely because, again, once Bitcoin gets to this resistance level, I expect that we'll reject it and we will start alt season. So at the very least, you can see we've had some relief in the markets. But once we get even closer to this, I believe that will be the sign that we need for alt season to start. Most likely, this is going to coincide with Q4 or January of 2025, whenever Trump gets elected, in my opinion. But either way, I do think that as we get closer, there is a higher chance that the other altcoins and the markets rebound strongly. So just something to keep in mind on that end. Next, looking at the Ethereum Bitcoin chart. Okay, this is something I actually posted in the market updates. So if you haven't seen my market updates post that I posted this morning, definitely go and check that out. But the ETH BTC support is very, very strong here at this 0.044 level. And this is similar to the Bitcoin dominance. So you can see Ethereum rejected off resistance in January of 2021. But once it broke through that resistance, you can see what happened, okay? Ethereum rose 77% versus Bitcoin from April 2021 all the way to December of 2021. So that's why we had that huge run in Ethereum and altcoins. So, and then also you can see here that whenever we had another bounce on Ethereum in June of 2022, it rose 60% versus Bitcoin. So I'm watching this very closely. Now this support actually, by being bullish as well for Ethereum and alts, you can see that we also have this 2-year trend line that's been rejecting off of. So there's a couple catalysts here. Ethereum bouncing off this major support level, and then also Ethereum breaking this 2-year trend line. Once we do that, we are going to be in full-blown alt season, in my opinion. This could either happen during Q4 or at the start of 2025. Either way, whenever it does happen, you're going to see a huge run up in altcoins. Mark my words. So keep an eye on these chart, guys. It's the weekly chart for Ethereum and Bitcoin. Just go ahead and chart this trend line, set an alert when it crosses it, whatever you want. But it does coincide here with weekly resistance horizontally, as well as a 2-year weekly trend line resistance. So keep an eye on that. Next, we had USDT dominance, which I posted about. I said the USDT dominance reached its resistance point and it's rejecting. And look what happened. USDT dominance rejected, which means people are getting out of stables, investing back into Bitcoin and altcoins. That's why it's so important to look at these metrics, guys. You got to look at different data points because it's going to help keep you emotionally sane and a level head versus thinking, with knee-jerk reactions or selling your crypto because everyone else has capitulated. You always got to look at the data and what it's saying. So this resistance point at 6.45% was resistance on January 22nd of this year, was also resistance November of 2023 when we started the huge run that we had. So this is a big level that I'm watching and it rejected. So this is very, very bullish. Not to mention that the RSI was getting very close to resistance here as well, which it acted as resistance November of 2022 and December of 2022. So you always got to keep in mind these resistance points. TA does work even in this, in the space of these strong FUD events. TA still does reign supreme in my opinion once the dust settles. So keep an eye on that. And then total 3. So this is the big thing that I actually had my Jim Alpha post a few days ago where I said, hey guys, there's this fractal playing out from 2021 to 2022. And you can even see here. So we had a bounce in 2021, a bounce again, and then we dropped, we rejected. So this is the third rejection, and then we went down for 5 months. And then you can see here, we bounced twice, we rejected, and then you can see we rejected. This is the third time, and then we declined. Okay, so this is very, very close, even on the RSI. You can see how similar it is, same levels basically. So if this fractal does play out, it would happen over the period about 5 months, which this is the total 3, the total market cap minus Bitcoin and Ethereum. So this would be playing out over 5 months. So I said, hey, Bitcoin could drop here potentially down to 52K, which ended up happening. It didn't bounce. I mean, it could potentially bounce off this RSI still, depending how strong the weekly bounce is today, because we still have about, call it 5 or about 6 days left for the weekly candle. So we could still have a sharp increase here on the RSI, and it could be a good fake out. But the fact that this breakdown did cause us to break down even more on this total 3 chart. But we did have, I believe we got pretty close to this, you can see here, to this 200-day EMA and this horizontal support level here that I drew. So that's something as well that I'm watching if we do get that low. But this fractal is always something that I'm monitoring now in the background. I don't think anyone else was looking at this at all. So this drop necessarily wasn't out of the blue, but again, it was more extreme than most were expecting. But if you look here at the fractal from 2022, basically the same exact thing that happened. So guys, it's always about looking at data, I say, and try to find the most data and compile the most data, but not getting that analysis paralysis where you don't do anything, right? Just playing risking your, managing your risk, and it's a game of statistics, so you got to play that accordingly. But it is good that we bounced off this support level here at 517 billion on total 3. It was major resistance on December 2023. So this is another trend line I'm watching besides the ETH BTC 2-year trend line. I'm watching this trend line here on total 3 because I can guarantee you, almost 100% certainty, if we break this trend line that did act as resistance in 2021, 2022, then we will see a bull run like we've never seen. And I do think that's still very much possible. So keep an eye on this trend line. If we close it on the weekly, it's going to be an insane bull run. So because that'll basically confirm that we're in a bull run, or we're even starting the second half of the bull run. So keep an eye on this trend line. It's going to be very, very important, as well as coinciding here with the RSI trend line. Next, looking at Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, talking about trend lines on the weekly. I have this trend line drawn on Bitcoin from March of 2020. So literally over 4 years of data. You can see Bitcoin bounced once, twice, 3 times. It fell through, acted as resistance, which actually confirms itself as a respected trend line, acted as resistance once, acted as resistance twice, and then 3 times. It closed below it. Finally, it broke above it and now acted as support like we just saw. So you have to look at trend lines not just for being support, but also are they acting as resistance and being respected? The fact that they did here is the reason why I drew this trend line I believe in either the beginning of this year or last year, I drew this trend line because I saw that this was happening. And you can see here, we did bounce one off the horizontal support on Bitcoin near 50K, but also this trend line that ended up being around 52K. So if we can close above this trend line on the weekly, in my opinion, that's going to be bullish. We also have a very weak descending wedge here because it's not as constricted, but nonetheless, we do have a descending wedge and it is looking to bounce off of that. So there are some good signs here for a potential, temporary relief. And the fact that we did bounce off this trend line means it's still in play until we close below it on the weekly. So keeping an eye on that. But I would say, I'm looking right now at Bitcoin about 58K as the next target. So I expect we could see it continue higher, reject off 58K. And then basically it's going to be do or die time with maintaining this trend line and bouncing off of it, or retesting this 50K support and potentially going back down near this 47K and 42K where BlackRock bought Bitcoin for their clients. A lot of people are watching this 42 to 47K level because again, BlackRock is a big player and I cannot expect them to let Bitcoin fall below that. So just another level to watch as well, as I know a lot of other people are watching that. So next, looking at Ethereum. So Ethereum had a nice bounce off this major weekly support level here of 2,200. Again, a lot of people were panicking around here. You did see even that we did close or did break below this little descending wedge on the weekly as well on the RSI, which again, that's not good at all. That's very bearish. But the fact that we did bounce off this horizontal support is good to see. And we just came just above this 200 weekly EMA at 2,050. So looks like people are still interested in Ethereum. Again, with Grayscale basically having lower outflows as well on Friday, that's good to see. So we could start to see Ethereum take over Bitcoin remember, we were looking at our ETH BTC chart as well. So this is the 100-day EMA, this yellow line here. So looking for us to hopefully close above this on the weekly in the next 6 days. But good to see this bounce on Ethereum. It did act as support here back in December of 2023, and then acted as resistance April of 2023, and support in February 2022. So this is a big level of contention. So definitely keep an eye on this. Next, looking at Solana. So Solana, again, one of those ones with a huge bounce. So you can see here on the weekly that it did bounce nicely off of that 115 level. I know a lot of people were watching this level. It coincided as well with the 50-day weekly EMA. And you can see here, it was a big support. So it was resistance on December of 2023 and February of 2024, and then it did act as support. So guys, again, always look at these trend line levels, always look at these support levels, because on the weekly and monthly time frames, 9 times out of 10, they are respected if the FUD doesn't continue. Again, if World War III breaks out, then these support levels are basically going to get blown through. But if not, then you're going to see these levels start to be respected. So that's why it pays to look at those. So for Solana, what I would like to see is a reclaim above this 137 mark. So I believe once we reclaim 137, that'll be very bullish. I do know that here we could say that we do have a mild support level here at around 130. So this is something else to watch for, because we did bounce off of that at the latter part of June, and then also in the beginning of July, we did bounce off that level. So I would say 128, 130, it's an important level to watch for Solana. And then also you can see here that we do have this descending wedge on the RSI as well, which you can see how many times it's acted as support. So watching this as well, but do think that we could temporarily continue higher here. Would love to see us close above 137, and then finally above 154 would be very bullish as well. And then finally, let's go ahead and look at TON. So a lot of people have been looking at TON, and TON has the same thing. The levels have been respected. So you can see here on the weekly, the support of 480 was respected just above the 50-day weekly EMA, and a lot of people bought it there, currently at 534. So what I would like to see with TON is for it to close above this 560 level. This would be a good level to close above on support, and then continue higher for these weekly resistances, which the next one would be 623, followed by 693. So keep an eye on TON. It's still good. The RSI is approaching the support level, which was support near January of this year. So looking for TON to have a further bounce here, especially as the chain continues to gain traction and more people bridge over, more developers end up developing apps, making the app easy to use. And again, Pavel, the founder of Ton, actually posted a tweet a couple days ago about them introducing a web browser for Telegram. So he's still active in the space. So that gives me confidence. It should give everyone else confidence that, again, Pavel is still deep into the space. He still wants to build it. And more developers are continuing to build and create easy to use interfaces for mass adoption. So keep an eye on Ton. Again, I believe it could have another run very soon. And then also XRP. So I did make an XRP post on my Twitter account a couple days ago about it breaking out of this 6-year weekly downtrend. And unfortunately, it was a fake out. So you can see that it did close above it, but due to recent events, it closed below it and basically retested this weekly support level. So the fact that it retested weekly support and held is bullish in my opinion. You can see here, the support level acted as support 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and technically 6 right now. So XRP is one of those weird coins. It's like a stable coin, always around 50 cents, to make a joke. But the fact that if it breaks out, I do know that Ethereum breaks out shortly after it and alts follow suit. So XRP is another coin to keep in mind as well. Okay, so don't fade that. Just look at it from a TA perspective. Watching very closely. It has this pennant pattern, so if it can break above this resistance, could see some fireworks and could see that money bleed over to Ethereum and alts. So watching that very closely as well. Finally, let's look at upcoming events. So we do have the presidential debate. I know Trump invited Kamala Harris to speak on September 4th, but she declined it. So now I believe it's still scheduled for September 10th with ABC. And they're going to have that, which is in just a little over a month. So this is going to be big. It's going to, in my opinion, it's going to steer opinion of where the market's going and who's going to win. So we saw that after Trump had a victory over Biden on the last debate in June, the market loved that and rose accordingly because people saw how much more competent Trump was, and 2, how bullish he was, 1, for winning, but also, his stance on crypto, as he stated previously. People thought that if him becoming president, it's going to be bullish for crypto. So again, the market acted accordingly. So I believe if we see Trump have a strong debate here and people see him as a no-brainer winner against Kamala, then we'll see the markets pump again. So this is going to be an important debate. I would definitely recommend tuning in and see how strongly he performs against Kamala, which I believe will be very strong. And then, basically people will start to price in his presidency win. Then also we have Singapore. So Token 2049 is happening September 18th and 19th. So I'm going to be here. Hopefully you guys are going to be here. Would definitely love to see you guys, meet you guys. It's going to be a great event. There's going to be a lot of side events, a lot of big stuff happening. So definitely recommend people go if you are thinking about it. But with that, that marks the end of the overview. If you guys have questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. We'd love to answer any questions you guys have. And with that, let's go to the chats. So we've seen How to Save a Life says Solana already jumped 15%. Pretty cool. Yeah, it's great to see that this bounce we've had in altcoins, even some meme coins, they've had extremely strong bounces. I know as well Sage, we were talking about Sage just the other day, and it had a bounce from 5.3 million market cap now to 8.9. So it shows you even some smaller cap projects, they bounce a lot as well if the fundamentals are there. So don't sleep on those fundamental projects, guys. And then let's see, Aaron says, I really like these discounts. Yeah, these discounts are great. And again, it gives you an idea of how much capitulation happened just with the total liquidations over 1 billion, but also how much panic there was on the timeline. So I always try to bring people in and kind of, make people have a level head, because a lot of times it's easy to get emotionally involved whenever you see everything going down. Cody says, this entire thing is screaming shakeout. Exactly. And we'll see that with the flows, in my opinion, once you see the ETF flows for Bitcoin and Ethereum. See, NavC says, what coins are best to start DCAing now? So I mentioned that you got to look for strong plays during the recent drop. Okay. What coins perform strongly? Solana performed very strongly, in my opinion. So I mentioned potentially DCAing in that. I know that if we just look at the past 24-hour gainers, look at that. Look at Brett, how much it bounced. Okay, I believe Brett got just below 700 million market cap. That thing bounced, you can see, over 15% so far. So I know Luke's bullish on Brett. Even Ondo was our top RWA play. I know we had a Jim report on that, I believe, and it's bounced nicely as well. Again, I expect RWA, real world assets, to be a narrative that's going to have a resurgence in Q4, as well as AI plays. I believe we'll still see those have a resurgence as well. You're seeing Tau bounce, but yeah, I would say for myself, good place to DCA. I mean, just the majors, right? You have Ethereum, you have Solana, even some of the memes, right? The blue chip memes. So Brett showed a lot of strength here. Obviously, I'd wait for a pullback to support, but yeah, Brett making a nice comeback. Even Ondo as the main RWA play had a nice pullback. So I would look at some of these major plays that are showing strength right now, because those could be a good indication further down the line. If we do have another drop, I would look at their weekly support levels. Okay, even Nero on ETH. Okay, so I know Nero is a meme coin, but you can't ignore the strength that it had during this whole drop. So I would look at these support levels for Nero. I would say, I wouldn't like to buy it 16 cents. I'd feel better if it dropped down to 15 or even 13. And actually, now that it has more data here, let's see. I was just looking at big levels to draw here. Yeah, I would say these are still in play. So yeah, probably 15 cents, potentially 13 cents here. If we do have another drop, and potentially 11 cents, because it did have such a nice bounce. So Nero for memes would be good. I mean, you also obviously have a few other memes that are doing good. You had Tuncat that was bouncing nicely. You had a couple other strong memes as well that were bouncing. So yeah, I would say just look for those strong memes, and then potentially you could see those continue to outperform like we're seeing today. And then some of the major plays as well that have been performing strongly on this bounce. So let's see. We have, Michelle B. Can you please keep us updated with the trend line? Yeah, definitely, guys. So I'm always monitoring these trend lines with Bitcoin dominance, Ethereum, Bitcoin, USDT dominance, total 3, again, all this stuff, especially even just Bitcoin, Ethereum in general. So yeah, make sure to follow me on Twitter if you're not following me. I post updates on that. And of course, I post Jim Hunter Alpha and market updates first before Twitter, if at all. So I make sure to keep you guys updated first, since you guys are part of the Alpha group. See, Matthew says, can we check out an update on Trump? Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about MAGA, but we'll go ahead and take a look. So Trump right now, it's at 349, 160 million market cap. So let's go ahead and draw some trend lines here. So look at that. I was just looking over here, and to the right, you can see it actually wicked above the support level that I just drew. So this shows me that this is very strong support at 350. So in my opinion, anything where this wick went, so around 238 to 350, in my opinion, these are good DCA levels for Trump. Especially because that debate's coming up September 10th, and then you have the election November 5th. So you have some big catalysts, especially if Trump has a strong showing on September 10th. You can expect these coins to go up massively. We saw this with the Bitcoin conference. Just prior to Trump speaking, you saw this token, appreciate a lot. So I expect we'll see the same for the September 10th debate, and then leading up to the election as well. So yeah, if you can get these levels, if we have a drop again around this 240 level, would be gravy. Really anything just between $2 to $250 is the best in my opinion, because you do see that you did have nice resistance January of this year, which is now a support between these levels. So yeah, Trump's showing strongly right now. Very impressed by that bounce that it had on the wick. And then even the RSI. So the RSI right now, if we have a strong bounce here, it could be a little double bottom, but the RSI is very oversold. So it's almost at that 30 level, which would be a great buying opportunity in my opinion. The RSI has never been oversold on the daily. So this is a level I would watch as well, potentially set alerts on that on TradingView. So yeah, keep an eye on that. But Trump, good levels. I would say the next resistance level to watch out for is about $4.95. And then from there, I would be looking around, call it around $9 is the next major resistance. But I would say some temporary here is about $6.80. So yeah, keep an eye on these levels if you're thinking of getting in. But I do think anywhere down here between $2 and $3, very good DCA levels. Let's see. JT Ventures says, bro, I agree. Governments are creating FUD to shake little guys out. They want the Bitcoin for themselves because there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. Yeah. That's something as well, is the guy I was talking with in the Mario Noel's spaces this morning. was basically saying that, again, Bitcoin's a tulip bubble and, it's not going to replace the fiat currency, where you got to remember Bitcoin is only 21 million supply, right? They're not making any more, not like they are with the dollar, where they can print money out of thin air. And real quick, I just want to add on to what JT Ventures said and kind of look at the post that Luke mentioned. So for anyone that didn't see the post that Luke mentioned, I'll post it here. He says, we've seen companies like Meta, Nvidia, and Amazon prevail because their network effects overshadowed older hierarchical structures. These companies just needed to withstand the inevitable resistance from traditional systems. For instance, the Democrats are now curbing network effect threats to their puppet leaders, including both Bitcoin and the crypto industry. They're acting while they can look so desperate. The timeless conflict between hierarchies and networks persists, but the inevitable is absolute, and those who understand how the world works will position themselves above the rest by betting on the purest network state. This is year 15 of the Roman Empire. You don't understand yet what is upon us. Bitcoin cannot be stopped. Bitcoin fundamentally and radically changes the concept of money because, unlike our current fiat forms, it is a native aspect of the new global network, the fifth domain, cyberspace. Unlike fiat money, it's not tied down by physicalities. Bitcoin was created to empower civilizations, not to enslave them. Cast your lots where the future will go, but don't bet against this monster because it cannot be stopped. Think in terms of generational wealth and not in 15% market swings. Time is on our side. Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. So guys, again, I would reread this post by Luke. He mentions everything I'm thinking, that Bitcoin is here to stay, and it is, one, a battle against the global elites, but two, a way to become your own bank. And that's why so many sovereign wealth funds are investing in it. Why BlackRock passed the Bitcoin ETF and the Ethereum ETF. Why they applied for it. Why you can see all these institutions getting in Bitcoin. Why you can see more countries adopting Bitcoin. Like the writing's on the wall. There's only 21 million of them. It's only getting more valuable. And we're seeing that even with a bounce today. I can guarantee you inflows are going to be positive today for these ETF flows, for these institutions. Because as people are scared, as people think this is going to zero, the same thing happened in 2018, 2019. And the same thing's happening today. So just keep that in mind. Yes, there's going to be FUD. Yes, there's going to be major events in the world that cause a cascade like we saw this morning. But guys, keep in mind the long-term vision, because we know where Bitcoin's going and we know where the world is going, and we know that Bitcoin is the currency of the future. So with that, crypto is going to rise up. A rising tide lifts all boats, as they say, and Bitcoin is the tide. All right, let's go to Logan. Great live today, man. Really enjoyed it. Hey, Logan, glad you're enjoying it. Try to be as concise as possible, be as informative as possible, because I know there's a lot of uncertainty. So glad you're enjoying it. Cyan says Ponky as a big allocation. So let's go and look at Ponky. So Ponky is one of those main Solana memes that's been performing. It was performing well. It's good to see at least today from the price action. And here, so yeah, this is exactly why I draw these TA support lines. So you can see Ponky has actually wicked all the way back up to above its support level of 28 cents. And let's go ahead and look where this wick happened. So you can see here that we had this support level that was on May of 2024, and now it wicked off of it. So guys, even on meme coins, I mentioned that legitimate meme coins, not just the low cap ones, but legitimate ones that have a strong community, that community is going to be looking to buy at those major support levels, especially on the daily. So if you're thinking of getting in a meme coin, if it's a strong one, like Ponky, like Trump, like Nero, like Tuncat, any of these, look at the major support levels on the longer time frames, the 4 hour, the daily, etc., because people have their orders set there and they are watching it for events like we just had. So Ponky, yeah, it's a nice bounce by that. And even here, looking at the RSI, it didn't quite get oversold, but it got very, very close on the daily. And the last time RSI was oversold was the beginning of this year before it had its massive run. So great to see with that on Ponky. I wouldn't be surprised if we continue higher from here. I would say again, since we did have such a jump from 20 to 30 cents, potentially wait for a further pullback. But in my opinion, around this 28 cent level wouldn't be a bad level to start DCAing. And then really anything in between 20 to 24 cents would be a good level as well, in my opinion. So yeah, Ponky's not a bad play. I wouldn't go all in on it per se, but potentially allocate a small percentage. Janzo said, can you please check TCAT and TSC? Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, Tuncat and Ton Season, they are some of the top memes that are always trending on Dex Screener on the Ton blockchain. And TunCat actually had some big updates yesterday. For anyone who didn't see, I know Tyrell, the Crypto King, he actually mentioned a couple big updates. He burned $1.5 million worth of TunCat live, which is pretty crazy. And that's why I saw this huge upswing here. So yeah, it's been performing very well. Just looking here at the TA. So these are major support levels I drew on it. We did have on the daily actually a descending wedge that did break out to the upside. So lowest it got to was 7 cents. And then it bounced over double that, nearly triple that over the next few days. And since then, you can see here that it did wick below the support level, but since has closed within it. So watching this daily candle close very closely over the next few hours, but it is showing some good positive price action. I know the holders on TCAT are continuing to increase. They're about 4,600 if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, TCAT looks good. I would say wait for the daily close around this 13 to 14 cent level. If we close within this range, in my opinion, I'll be very bullish. But if we do close outside of it, then I would potentially look. I mean, obviously, if it gets down to the 007 level, that's going to be a good buy. But I would say just looking at this wick, I would more so look at between 8.5 cents to around 10 cents. Yeah, I would start looking at these. But 8.5 cents or 0.085, I should say. If you can get in near this level, it wouldn't be bad, especially if it gets back down to 0.07. And then looking at TSE. So TSE again had a good bounce as well. So just let's see. I may have to redraw some of these support levels. Yeah, so I did have support here. It did go below it on the daily and then bounced above it. So you can see here that it did wick down to this 0.012 level and has since closed above 0.013. So TCAT is near a good level. In my opinion, I would start to DCA once you get down to 1.2 and 9.2. But I will caveat this. I do know that a lot of attention is being focused on TCAT right now. So you may see that have more attention, but ton season is the beta play to TCAT. So if TCAT does really well, you can expect ton season to do really well as well. So yeah, good to see some good bounces on ton season, and it did bounce nicely off this daily support. So that's good, some good price action right there. And RSI is still relatively low at 44. So again, probably focus on TCAT, but ton season is a good beta play if you're looking at about, an 80-20 split or whatever your portfolio allocation is for those two coins. Let's see. Patrick says, what would you do with basically no stables left at this point? Have a few K left and hearing that the bull may be later and later and trying to chill, but at the same time, many of my alts from March are at negative 70 to 80%. A lot of voices that we should sell crypto before the election, but at the same time, I'm so down. Yeah, so Patrick, with that, I just want to kind of remind you and everyone here is we've seen a lot of altcoins be down 70 to 80% during the last bear market, and then they ended up pulling 5-10x's, right? And so I think people underestimate how strong the bull market's going to be. So with that said, I would say if you don't have any stables, just hold, okay? Because the strong plays are going to stay resilient and are going to grow, especially when the bull market returns. So while I know it's hard seeing your portfolio negative 70 to 80% drawdowns, the biggest thing I would say is look at projects that are still building, that still have updates, that still have catalysts, that have strong communities, most importantly, that are transparent and active on their socials. Because communities that are still active, still engaging, holders are continuing to increase, and they're continuing to provide updates, those are the ones that will continue to grow. But the communities, for example, if you look at the Twitter account and there's been no posts in the past few months, or you look at their Discord or Telegram and the mods aren't interacting with the community, that's a bearish sign. Because that says, one, the community is either left or they're not, you don't have any updates, or they're not, staying engaged with their community, which is a big red flag. So you gotta look for strong communities, you gotta look for people that are providing updates, and also you gotta consider narratives. So that's something where I was mentioning earlier in the year, I thought AI would be a good narrative. I still think that AI is going to have a resurgence, potentially in October, November, but as well as RWA coins. Now, I know that Hustlepedia has talked a lot about GameFi coins, and I do still think we could have another GameFi run along with NFTs. That'll kind of be coincident whenever the second half of the bull market restarts. So that may not be a bad play. So that's when you want to look at those strong, what are the market leaders in GameFi, right? Beam is one. I know he was talking about Ronin earlier, and there was a few other GameFi plays. But that's the kind of thing where during these downturns, all the attention that we saw is on Bitcoin dominance. So that's why you're seeing everything bleed versus Bitcoin. That's why it's been outperforming most altcoins, including Ethereum. So as Bitcoin dominance gets closer to this resistance level, the likelihood that it reverses and altcoins take over is more and more. So that's why I always talk about Bitcoin dominance, always post it every time in Gym Alpha or market updates, because we are getting very close to that level. Could we have a last capitulation event such as World War III starting, or some more unwinding with the Japan, the yen carry trade, or anything else of that sense? Of course, right? If Kamala gets elected president, I can see that being bearish for crypto, obviously. There's a couple other events that could happen that could see a further bleed in alts, another 80% from where they're at now, right? Which is scary to even think about. So you got to just take things into account, but you got to look at the data. And the data right now is saying we're very close to an alt run, whether that's in the next few months or in Q4 or beginning of January. I mentioned Total 3, that fractal that showed up, if you basically look at this 1-to-1 and account for the different adjustments, then this basically says the bull run's going to restart in January of 2025. Now, again, if we break this trend line, all bets are off. Then the second half of the bull is starting now, right? So you're watching this trend line, you're watching the support levels, you're watching the RSI, you're watching everything, and you're basically preparing for the worst. But what does all this have in common? That a bull run is starting either way, whether it's in the next few months or at the beginning of next year. So a bull run is still here, in my opinion. I do still think we'll potentially get a Solana ETF. There's going to be more catalysts. Sovereign wealth nations are going to invest, and they're going to be our exit liquidity. I think once you have all these countries and all these other players investing, we're the early ones still, as funny as that sounds. I mean, now, yes, institutions are getting involved. Yes, retail is still here. Yes, there's all this other stuff happening, but you still don't have those sovereign wealth nations getting involved, those funds getting involved. That's still a little bit later down the line, because a lot of people still see crypto as a risk-on asset, which it is. Similar to S&P, it is. But it's becoming more legitimate by the day, by the week, by the month, as more ETFs are out, as more of these banks and institutions announce their ETF holdings, and as more people see that they are a basically tool to be used against the deep state, a tool to be used against the government, because you are your own bank. There is no restrictions if you want to transfer $20,000 in 5 minutes across the pond. There's all these benefits that it provides on top of security and et cetera. So it's here to stay. And whether, again, we see the bull market happen in the next few months or 6 months, it's going to happen. And in my opinion, you just have to hold throughout that. While it's tough, I would just look at past bear markets and kind of use that as a tool and engage that to where, okay, I had to wait X amount of months if I was in this bear market before we had another bull run, right? You just got to look at it all in perspective, look at how much coins pulled back and then how much they pumped afterwards. So the biggest caveat with that, again, long explanation, is there's some coins that didn't recover, okay? So some coins in the last bear market did not recover during this bull market. And Luke mentioned that. What we call them dino coins, okay? Dinosaur coins that were made back in the last cycle or cycle previously. A lot of them never recovered because there's so much dilution of capital in the market. You have Pump.Fund launching over 1,000 memes every day. You have all these LPB platforms that were launching coins every day. You have all these VCs, all these institutions that were invested in these, these early coins with their pre-seed rounds or their private sales, et cetera, that are launching every day. So there's all kinds of capital that's being stretched so thin so that you only have the major players that are appreciating in price. Yes, you're going to get some tailwind for the coins that aren't as popular just from the overall wealth effect. But just keep in mind that if you're not investing in a major, or if it's just been bleeding the whole time, how has your coin been performing during the previous bull run? How was it performing from October to March? Was it performing good, or was it choppy / was it dropping? Because that's not a good sign. If your coin wasn't doing good during the bull run that we had, it's not going to do good when we have another bull run. So that's something I would say to keep in mind. If it pumped 2-3x during the bull run, cool. It'll most likely pump another 2-3x or more during the second half. But just look at its strength and just look at it comparatively, as well as to last year, and then how its performance has been. So I hope that helps. Let's see. Cyan asked a little earlier with quite a few reactions. Negative 100K portfolio from scratch, split between a few coins, 6 out of 10, balance risk across the board. Yeah, so balancing your risk across the board is definitely something I recommend. So I recommend having being diversified with your portfolio, because you never want to be over allocated. I mean, unless you're just all in on Bitcoin, all in on Ethereum, something of that aspect. I would say definitely diversify your assets among, in my opinion, the majors. So I would say diversify it among Solana, Ton, Ethereum, Bitcoin, maybe even Dogecoin, potentially Pepe, Brett, right? All the ones that have shown strength. Even some of the major AI players, potentially Render, maybe even Tau. Those are the majors I'm talking about whenever you want to see bounces. And then obviously things like Jupiter, potentially the Pith network, right? All these coins that have shown strength, and for teams that continue to build, those are ones you should be diversifying in versus the random ones that no one knows. So yeah, in my opinion, for the amount of coins I would hold, most likely I would say between 10 to 15 is a sweet spot, because that's where even new traders can still keep track of the coins that they have and the updates that the teams are providing. Any more than 15 coins, and really it's just a crapshoot. You're not able to properly monitor all the teams, all the socials, everything else, the news that comes out. So yeah, I would say just keep it 15 or less. And then that way you can properly get allocated and properly track everything. Tobias says, Zignally also is quite stable during this shakeout. Yeah, Zignally, I haven't really kept track of that one. I'll go ahead and look at the charts. So it did have a nice double bottom, just looking on there. Let's see. Looking at the 3-month chart, not horrible. The 1-year chart isn't too bad. So yeah, Zignally has been holding up fairly well. Yeah, interested to see what that team's doing. Maxi says, how much percent of your portfolio is still in stables? What's your plan on buying the dip? For me, I have 20% in cash, and I think I will deploy a quarter of it this week. Thanks in advance for the response. Yeah, Maxi, so I'm very little in stables. I would say less than 10% right now. I'm basically fully allocated at this point. If we have a further drop, I'm just going to hold because eventually we'll have an upturn. It may be shaky again, depending what happens with the election and other things. But yeah, I'm almost fully deployed here. If we have another drop, that'll be the last stables that I have, especially if Bitcoin gets down to 42 to 44K. That would kind of be like the last injection, for my opinion. Because also, Max, you got to think, we also have the FTX creditor, the refunds. It's over, I believe, $16 billion worth of refunds from FTX. So that's something that you got to think about as well. That wealth effect that's going to happen in Q4 from everyone getting that cash. And then if prices are still cheap, you better believe they're going to start investing. And then, more so, even if there's FOMO and everything's going up, they may feel like they're missing the boat and pump it even more. So yeah, that's another catalyst you got to think about as well, besides the presidential election. So still a lot of catalysts. But yeah, I would say for your 20% in cash, I would wait. Again, I saw this as a temporary relief bounce, what we're seeing right now. I'd wait until the dust settles over the next week. I did mention yesterday to start DCAing on that big drop that we had. Hopefully some of you guys did DCA and get some good entries. But yeah, I would say for the 20% remaining cash, just kind of look at the major support levels, start buying a little when they get to there. And then, see in a week where we're at. Because I believe in a week, we're going to have an idea of the tensions in the Middle East, what's going on with the yen carry trade in the Bank of Japan, and then interest rates for the US, and if they're going to have a stimulus or not. So I think we're going to see that very clearly in the next week. But until then, just kind of look at major support levels and kind of DCA down there. Jim says, I'm shorting Uni USDT, 200% profit. Do you think they're still dumping? Oh, Jim, I see you're playing with that leverage, which, again, I highly advise against leverage trading, but obviously people are still going to degen. Jim, I would say, if you're up in 200% in profit, I would take half profit at least. You're never wrong taking profit, especially that much, but I would definitely set your stop loss to break even. So if it gets down so that you're not losing any money, but you still made money if you took half profit out. So yeah, that would be my opinion on that. Obviously we could still have another drop. I'm not ruling it out at all. But yeah, just going to see what happens with the overall market over the next few days. Rodrigo says, a concern. I read what Spider wrote on the alpha, and it makes me wonder if this big drop also is showing us to think more instead of DCAing. I personally am doing DCAing all the time. How do you personally see the macro? So there's people that talk about if this big drop is just the start, right? Kind of the first domino before we see a cascade of events similar to the start of '08, whenever we had that crash. I think that's possible. I know in the Mario spaces that I was in, there was a lot of smart macro traders and macro investors and analysts that some were saying something similar, that, hey, this could be the start of a further correction because the market did get overheated. We did have NVIDIA pump like crazy. The top 7 stocks were pumping like crazy, basically carrying the market. And since then, we're having a reset. Now, on the other end, I did have other people saying it was just a healthy reset, which I think, in my opinion, that's what it was. It was a healthy reset because we were oversold on a lot of these indicators. You could even see on the S&P that, let me go ahead and bring it up. On the S&P, I mean, how much we were overbought, right? So you can see we had this bearish divergence on the S&P on the weekly, and then we had a reset to that major resistance, okay? So this is something I want to tell people is, always keep in mind how much, one, look at the RSIs and look at indicators just to give you a level head of where everything is at and how overheated or oversold everything is. So in my opinion, it was a correction that was needed. Now the weekly RSI on the S&P is reset. And even on Bitcoin, if we look at that, with the RSI on Bitcoin, now again, it's reset as well. On the weekly, it's below that 50 mark. It's near support here. And it bounced off this trend line. So in my opinion, that was a flush that was needed because people were over leveraged. And that's exactly what we saw with over $1 billion in liquidations. People got wrecked. People kind of were brought back down to reality. And now they see, okay, I was way too over leveraged. Let me play it a little bit safer, right? So I think that's what we're seeing now. It was needed. Yes, it's still possible. Again, if the Middle East, if we go into World War III, all these other things happen, right? But I do think that at the very least, you should be DCAing near these levels or once we get towards support again, and then, seeing what happens over the next few days and kind of keeping some capital for that if possible. But yeah, I mean, I do think the U.S. economy is going into a recession eventually within the next year. No doubt it's going to happen because they're artificially propping up the numbers, especially for everything we're seeing, whether it's unemployment, the jobs rate, anything of that sort. They're propping that up, and we are going to see a massive unwind. So in that sense, yeah, it plays to pay it safe. But regarding crypto, I do still think that we do still have a second half of the bull run. It hasn't even started yet, and it is going to be massive. And, as long as you're positioned accordingly and you have some exposure to the market, I'm not saying go 100% allocation, but at least have some allocation in the market, then you will be able to catch that upside when it does happen because the writing's on the wall, the ETFs are being passed, institutions are investing, countries are investing. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? So yeah, that'll be my bet is it's still possible we have a further decline, but this one was not it. We're going to see a temporary relief. And then over the next few months, we'll be able to see how much further decline happens, if it does happen, or in Q4, if we start that bull run again, or at the beginning of 2025, especially if Trump gets elected, and then we continue everything as previously stated. And then Johnzo says, Champu, please do as well. Okay. I just noticed it's 1:10 right now. I'm going 10 minutes over here on the stream, giving you guys some extra content. We'll go ahead and keep it going since it's been such a pivotal moment over the past 24 hours. So yeah, let's go shampoo, see where we're at. Whoops. Let me go ahead and copy paste the name here. Okay, so Champu went up a little 30% here. So, so the chart right now, again, it's doesn't look the best, but yeah, I would say, I mean, Shampoo right now, I would see what updates the team has. Obviously, it's had a big bounce like a lot of other coins. I would see the reason for the bounce if the team provided some big updates or what's going on there. But yeah, I mean, this resistance, you can still see here from the wick at about 60006. I would keep an eye on that. If it can close above on the daily, then I would turn bullish on it. Until then, I would be very cautious. We did have this bounce here, so this is obviously a level of support now. So if we hold above the support at 0004, and then I would be looking at, again, a break of this 6 level. Or if you're bullish on it, then potentially buying at this 4 level. I'm not in it right now. So yeah, I would just play this accordingly and just wait until we have a close above before thinking of getting in. Doctor said, right now I'm licked, so 0% crypto and 100% stables. What do you suggest? Start DCAing or keep waiting for better entries on holding strategy? No. So I say, Doctor, I say definitely start DCAing in my opinion. I mean, we saw one of the biggest capitulation events that we've ever seen. And with over $1 billion in liquidations, that's insane. So at the very least, I would start DCAing. Again, preferably you want to wait until we have a further, until we retest support here on a lot of these coins. I do know that, Bitcoin did bounce nicely here, 54.4. We could still have a further drop. So if you see Bitcoin get down to this trend line again around 52 to 50K, potentially could be a good DCA level. But yeah, I would look at the daily and the weekly support levels for a lot of coins that you're interested in, and then look to DCA into those once we get near those. Nobc says, where can we expect Ondo to reach in the bull run peak? Any predictions? Also, same question for Ton. So yeah, let's go ahead and look at Ondo. So, well, first let's go to Ton since we're already on the chart. So for Ton, for a bull run peak, I would say at least $20. Still expect to probably go a lot higher than that. But a lot of people compare it to Solana. So Solana right now is 62 billion market cap, whereas Ton is 13 billion. So you just look at it 1-to-1, that'd be about a 5x. So Ton 5xing from here would be roughly $25. Now, in a bull run, these market caps are going to be a lot higher. Okay, so Ton could even be $50 or more. I would say, though, conservatively, I could see Ton at $20. And then for Ondo, just looking at, let's see, where's it at? All right, so Ondo right now is at 1 billion market cap. So being a top RWA platform, I do think that it getting into, I would say at least until the top 40s here, around 2 billion or more, very, very possible, or even higher. I would say probably the top for Ondo is going to be near, if I had to guess, probably near $3. I would say $3 to $4, which would put it, just above that $3 billion market cap. So yeah, I would say about $2 to $3 could be pretty conservative with that. But being the top RWA platform, as RWAs continue to gain traction, definitely could be higher than that. But just considering the market cap it's at, probably around 3 to 4 billion. Let's see. So, all right. Matthew says, awesome. Loved hearing what you had to say. Much appreciated. Hey, no problem. Cyan says, I work in TradFi and been watching some pretty big moves today off the back of the JPY USD carry trade. Been in and out of hedge fund manager meetings with some Japanese managers today. Some saying this is a relief bounce, reading to go lower, especially if there is even slight move in this going in the Middle East. Thoughts open to the floor. Yeah, Cyan. So definitely, that's very, very possible, right? Because we don't know necessarily, and let me know if you know, when the unwinding of the carry trade is completed. There's kind of no measurement to that, right? Now, we saw the markets open today, so obviously any other unwinding that has to happen is happening right now. But, by the time Japan increased their interest rates, the unwinding already started happening, in my opinion, and it's been happening over the past few days. So there's no telling, like you said, if this is just a start and we could go further. I do think that is definitely a possibility. If I had to narrow it down in percentage-wise, I would say 50-50. I would say that we're still too close to the Middle East tensions to definitively say if it's going to continue or not. And then we're still too close to the carry trade, again, to say if they're fully unwinded or not. So time will tell with that. Time is the great filter. So I would give it a week, potentially even 2 weeks or more, and to see where we're at then. If tensions decrease, and then there's not as much unwinding for the rest of the carry trade, if Japan ends up decreasing their interest rates again, causing another flow of money back into the market, that could be something else. But yeah, I would say just time is the biggest thing. But kind of reiterating how much capitulation we had, it still pays the DCA. So just the risk reward is too good not to, in my opinion. And then but be ready mentally. Like I said, because they'll have 5 months of downside and then start the bull in January of 2025. Or, we could fall down to that 42 to 44K level on Bitcoin and then bounce from there. So again, I'm open to two scenarios, but just mentally being ready for that. But yeah, I still say it's too close to say, but there's definitely a possibility it still could continue, definitely. Shanks says, some people are talking about CatDog. Did you hear about it? Yeah, I heard about CatDog. I didn't really pay much attention to it. CatDog actually got big because there was a cat season and a dog season, and CatDog is obviously the combination of that. The chart does look very good. Just initial impressions. We've had this support level hold. Even drawing these support levels here, we can see that it did bounce nicely off of that 2.5 level, and then it has reclaimed above this 4.2 level. So if you're in CatDog right now, just be wary of this, the RSI. It's above 70 here. And usually on these meme coins, RSI does end up resetting whenever it gets overbought, especially on the higher time frames. So looking at the 4 hour, just kind of, let me see so the 4 hour right now, let's see so you could even see, technically we are right at this trend line resistance on the RSI on the 4 hour. If you want to draw it just from these two peaks here to be a little more accurate, then we could have a little bit more room, right? So I would just say be wary of this. We could have a little bearish divergence on our hands. So if we end up making a higher high here, but then RSI is making the lower low here, then we could see, some downside. But CatDog has been performing well. As far as resistance points, I would start looking at this 5.9 level. So if they can close above this on the 4 hour, on this about 6 level here, then I'd be pretty bullish on that. But again, just keep in mind this RSI and the potential bearish divergence and how overbought it is getting on the daily. Okay, that could still get us, cause us to retest this 4.2 level as support. So if you're bullish on it, I would be looking to get in near 4.2 if you retest that again. And then if we have another black swan event, 2.3. Nabsy says, your opinion about Centrifuge, top AI coins to invest in at the moment. So let's see. Yeah, I'll answer that. And I'll answer just a few more questions. I got spaces I got to get to. But Centrifuge, I would say, let me go ahead and put it in on TradingView. Hold on. Okay, so Centrifuge on KuCoin. So I haven't kept up with Centrifuge, honestly. Just doing some quick TA here. All right. All right, so we have fallen through this support level, which does not look good. I would definitely not be in Centrifuge right now. I would wait either A, until we can close above this support level on the weekly of 35 cents, or wait until we reach this lower level of 17 cents, which is a more major support level, basically the all-time low. So yeah, I would wait till either we close above 35 or on 17. But just looking at it from when we had the AI boom, it just looks like it went from 62 to 99, so 50%. So it didn't even pump that much necessarily on the AI boom that we had. So there may be better picks out there, in my opinion. Let's see. And then, yeah, top AI coins to invest in at the moment. Still think Render is a good AI play. Potentially a Kosh Network, AKT. Fetch could be one. Even Prime. I know that a lot of people were, Ansem specifically, he's very bullish on Prime with their updates that they have coming down the line. So Prime was a big player during when we had the AI run. You can see it pump from $7 all the way up to $27. So nearly a 4x there. That's the kind of returns I'd be looking for AI, good AI plays. So yeah, right now, it's just below support. So I would say be weary of buying right now. For Prime, I'd look near $5, which, it's just below there or just above there. So yeah, it's getting close. It's getting close to support level. So potentially Prime could be a good AI play with Render and a few others. Even Tau, if it ends up catching back, because it was the main AI play. Jesse says, what are your highest conviction meme plays? I'm big in Wolf, Brett, TCAT, TSE, T-Dog. Yeah, so right now, just seeing the strength and everything, I would say Nero is a big one. So Nero on ETH, it has been performing amazing. It still surprises me this strength that it had, especially during the drop. So Nero's top play. I would say TCAT is another one. I'm bullish on obviously the TCAT TSE pair. TCAT's gaining more attention right now, so leaning towards that. But obviously TSE is a good beta play. You also have meme coins. Even let me just look at a few others real quick. So I know the Giga community is actually pretty strong. You can see here on the daily chart, it is looking to close above it. So Giga may not be a bad play here. I also know that, let me see how Billy's doing. So yeah, Billy's actually gone to the Shadow Realm. So not really doing much on that end. I mean, technically could say it reached this wick that we had back in July. So Billy potentially, but yeah, it lost a lot of momentum and has not been bouncing that much. It did bounce 40%, but yeah, I'm 50-50 on Billy. And then also, let's see which ones you're holding. Wolf, Brett, yeah. So Wolf is another one that I think could still gain traction. So what I would like to see from Wolf is, go ahead and delete these. And let me actually draw some new daily lines on here. So yeah, so Wolf right now is kind of struggling to close above the support level. Technically, you could say it's right there, but I would look for a close above 008 on Wolf to remain bullish again. The RSI is reset below 50. And then it did have a nice bounce off this little support level here back in early July. So Wolf isn't a bad play either. Again, I would just like to see a little more strength here and for it to hold these level at 008 to maintain that bullish sentiment there. And then the other ones you mentioned, Brett and T-Dog. Yeah, so I know we were talking about Brett earlier. I'll do some quick TA for you guys. Then I'll just take a couple more questions and got to head out. But for Brett, you can see that, again, it did have a huge drop, right? So Brett had a massive sell-off. What I would like to see for Brett is for it to regain this support level here above 9 cents and really above 10 cents. That's kind of where you want to see it bounce above. So not the best place for Brett, kind of in the middle of no man's land if you're looking at the daily support resistance levels. But either A, wait for it to regain above this 9 cent level, or B, wait for further downside down to 5.3 cents. But yeah, just kind of be wary of that on Brett for buying it right now. And then you said T-Dog. T-Dog I'm not bullish on. I mean, the only reason is I know the teams behind TCAT and TSE and what they're building. I know they're continuing to build, whereas you have TCAT here, or T-Dog, sorry, not really doing much in this market, where you had the other coins bounce. So T-Dog, I believe, had a lot of hype in the beginning, but since then it's been bleeding. So you just got to look at the price action, but you got to look at the team. What is the team doing? Are they staying active? All that good stuff. Because I know T-Dog likes to portray the PPP movement as well with TCAT and TSE. But yeah, I would just look at the community. If the community's not strong, you're going to see this bleeding. You're not going to see much buying. And that's what we've seen here, unfortunately, for T-Dog. So yeah, still remain more bullish on TCAT, TSE, 100%. Let's see. Ispan says, can we check FTM? This coin is on Gem Alpha review. Yeah. So Phantom, another coin with their Sonic update that's been, that had a lot of hype whenever that came out. Obviously, the hype has kind of died down since then. But I would say right now, let's just look at the levels. Yeah. So Phantom isn't looking the best either on the chart. So what I would say for Phantom is you want to see it regain this support level of 33 cents, or you want to wait to buy whenever it gets down below here at around 18 cents. So I never like to buy in these kind of middle of nowhere trades, and especially with the market uncertainty. If it's not a good buy level, I don't like to touch it. So if there's still uncertainty in the market, unless I'm getting good value for my money, I'm not touching it. So again, guys, I'd wait till I see it close in the weekly above 33 cents or for it to reach this 18 cent level. And then Roberto says, Palm AI looking good as well. Can you check Ron? Is a good price to DCA? So I'll check Ron real quick. Oh, so Ron's not looking the best. Yeah, Looks like it's bleeding. Let me see if there's a chart that has more history. So OKEx, Bybit, BitGet. Let's see. Yeah, no, I think. Okay, so BitGet has a little bit more history. Okay, so yeah, so what I would say for Ron is same thing here. You want to see it close above this level of, call it 144. So that's where it had its major resistance, April of this year, or last year actually, and since then is right around it. So, I mean, it may not be the worst value actually buying near here, because we did have this wick, and then we did have here's resistance now acting as support. So yeah, I would watch the weekly. If Ron can close above this 144 level on the weekly, I would definitely look to potentially get some. As far as, one of the main GameFi plays, because I know Hustlepedia is very bullish on it. So yeah, if we can close above it, again, very good level risk reward wise. If we can close above that on the weekly. Patrick says, hope they come up with a stimulus. Kent says, set your stop loss in a profit. Maxi says, thanks for the depth answer. Hey, no problem. And then JT Ventures, when the recession happens, what would you put your assets into? Gold, bonds, etc. Yeah, so gold has historically been a hedge against market recessions. So I definitely have some gold. I would have potentially some silver. I need to look at the chart for that as well. But I still hold some Bitcoin, right? Like Bitcoin, people call it digital gold. It's still a risk-on asset, but I do think over time it will prove itself as more countries adopt it and as more sovereign wealth funds adopt it as well, and it gains more legitimacy across the financial markets. So definitely, I would have some Bitcoin, have some gold, some silver, invest in other currencies as well, right? I know Luke really talks about like the Singaporean dollar, Swiss franc, and a couple other big currencies. So I would definitely invest into those, and even if you have some extra cash, maybe for real estate, once the real estate hits a bottom, that's always been a good investment as well. Again, there's a lot of mixed opinions on real estate, but at the very least, gold, silver, other currencies, because the US dollar is going to depeg, it's going to devalue, and then Bitcoin as an obvious one. Rodrigo, thank you so much for the answer. I do TA, only putting the support and resistance like the video you shared in the past and read news, etc., but never use the tools you use to see those metrics like the 50 EMA. Where can I learn about those tools, or if you have a video on that? Yeah, so great question, Rodrigo. So yeah, I would say just search YouTube. So like search how to use RSI, how to use moving averages when trading, right? Search that stuff, how to use the MACD. Because those YouTube videos, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be some good analysis on that. And I'm actually working on a PDF for technical analysis for gym hunters to explain like technical analysis and all that. So that's going to help a lot of people out. But yeah, I would just search YouTube for it. And look, the main indicators are RSI, MACD, and then the 50, 100, and 200 day moving averages. 50, 100, 200 day moving averages. So if you use all those tools, you're going to be all right. Let's see. And then Mastermind says, thank you for going overtime. Hey, no problem, guys. I know it is a anomalous event, to say the least. So Cheryl says, welcome to our live stream, Machiavel. You may write your answer. Okay. Machiavel says, can you give us your opinion on MAD? So MAD, I am not familiar with that. I'll do it and do that real quick. Assuming that's the one on Solana. I would say, just looking at the daily chart real quick, it did have a nice bounce off the daily support here, which is good to see. And it is looking like it is closing above the 2 level. So yeah, I would say it's pretty good price action for MAD. If it can close above this 2 level on the daily, then I would say that's a good sign. Again, there's still uncertainty in the market, so anything could happen. But the RSI right now, getting closer to that 50 level. So the RSI is almost reset completely. So yeah, I would just look at the close above the 2 level. And then if it does close above there, then there is still that, resistance around 2.3, and then more so major around that 2.8 level. So 2.8 and 3.4 are big resistance points besides the 2.3 for MAD. So if it can hold above 2 and then break above this 2.3, I'd be targeting these 2 next. Let's see, How to Save a Life says, what is the thesis behind Ron? So I can't tell you the full thesis. I would look at the post that Hustlepedia made. I believe he made it in Gym Hunter Alpha. So I would just look for his name and look for his post on there. House says, I'm in INJ, FET, Jupe, and Ton. Good coins for long term. Yeah, so I would say Jupe and Ton, definitely good coins for long term. FET could be a good long term AI play. I need to see what they're doing. I know they have kind of a high market cap, I believe. Let's see, hold on. Okay. I believe they are, 1 second. Yeah. So FET is right now, 2 billion market cap. I would say, I mean, looking at the bounce right now, it went from 70 cents to 82 cents. So 15% bounce, not too bad, right? But yeah, once AI catches a bid again, probably in October, November, I would say that FET should do fairly well, along with the other mains, Render, Tau, AKT, etc. And then Injective. Yeah, Injective was one. Let's go ahead and let me do a TA on that because I know we used to cover Injective a lot more. Okay, so I would say for Injective, just looking at the levels here. Yeah, so the only thing with Injective is it is closing below that weekly support here, which I do not like. So what I would like to see is Injective close above the support around $16 to $18 on the weekly. If it does that, again, maintain that bullish sentiment on that. But it has been losing steam as people rotate out of the old L1s into the newer plays, the new shiny new toys, as they say. So yeah, I would say just be wary of Injective if it doesn't hold, because then after that, next thing you're looking at is probably $10. Yeah, $10 there. So if you're bullish on Injective, the team's still developing, the devs are still deving, and they still have some big updates. Could be a good bet. But just looking at the action right now, it's not necessarily the strongest per se, just looking at the levels here. Astro says, given the current situation, what do you think needs to happen in order for retail plebs to enter the market? Yeah, so I think retail already entered, at least half of retail, because we did see different few companies such as Moonshot basically have what's called, let's see, let me go ahead and pull up that Twitter account. So we did have Moonshot, which basically lets you buy coins with Apple Pay. You can buy meme coins with Apple Pay. So this was actually a big retail onboarding when this happened, not even, just a couple weeks ago. So retail is already here. For retail, should I say, to gain confidence in crypto again, for that to happen, I would say, one, more companies adopt crypto, more institutions get in, more banking institutions get in and, add crypto to their portfolio. Obviously, Fidelity, you have, allocating a percentage to 401ks. So it is there. I would say there's a big educational gap in crypto I've seen, especially like, for example, if you're trying to transact on the Ton blockchain, people are asking, how do I do that? How do I bridge over to Ton? I'm in the United States. I can't buy Ton, right? Like there's different things that people have a trouble doing. So once that educational gap gets bridged and once we have easy to use user interfaces, basically where, there's a term that's called account abstraction, where basically it means you can do everything all in one. So once we have more of those come out, similar to Moonshot with just, buying coins with Apple Pay, but that will help ease the adoption of crypto because the retail, quote unquote, they're the people that aren't really in trading, right? They just see it on the news and then they potentially want to buy some, or they see the memes and they think it's funny and they want to buy some. So it's not necessarily the easiest to get onboarded right now. Now we are seeing Coinbase with the smart wallet. They launched in June 5th and some more things where, we're helping to increase that adoption. But as crypto, I believe it becomes easier to buy and sell things and just bridge between networks. That's when you're really going to see mass adoption. And of course, the more times it's on the news and advertised, you're going to see people want to get interested. But yeah, that's going to be the true mass adoption when you have people just being able to buy with one click, not even thinking, and being super easy and to onboard, because that's the biggest thing is onboarding is the biggest barrier to entry. And then Cheryl says, thank you for your overtime. Hey, no problem, Cheryl. See, last few questions here. Trump said Iran will attack Israel tonight. Where do you think this will take Bitcoin? If Trump attacks Israel tonight, I could see Bitcoin down to 42 to 44K because that is the next big support level. Again, BlackRock introduced most of their clients into Bitcoin around this 44K level. So if we see Israel, if we see Iran attack Israel, then I believe we could definitely see this tank down to this 44K level. Patrick, no problem. Ispan, anytime. JT, Fire OT Alpha, thank you so much. Hey, no problem. Cody, wants the news channels to talk about Bitcoin breaking all-time highs again. I think FOMO people will come in. Yeah, that's another one. Astro said thanks. Say no problem. And then Navc, last question here. What alts are a good buy right now that can do a 20 to 30x? So Navc, that is the $1 million question, right? what coins can do a 20 to 30x? I wish I had a crystal ball for that one. I would say just try to play the coins that have shown strength, right? I would say just make sure that, again, you're looking at even some meme coins that have shown strength. We talked about it earlier. Nero, Tuncat, a few others. Those are probably the most likely to do 20 to 30x. So look at meme coins that are showing strength. That would be my best bet for your 20 to 30x. For these fundamental plays, I doubt any in the top 100 are going to do 20 to 30x. Is it possible? Yes. But your better chance is with strong memes, in my opinion. And those are going to be the ones where a lot of the wealth is going to be made, as we've seen the meme super cycle in a sense over these past, call it, 7 to 8 months of people just investing in memes. I would say that'll continue to happen. Eventually, there will be a flow back into fundamental plays, so I'd never rule those out completely. I would still say, maybe 20% of your portfolio in memes. I would never allocate a majority into memes. But if you're asking about 20, 30Xs, strong memes are going to be your best bet. So, all right, guys. Hey, appreciate you guys listening to the Spaces or the Discord. Hopefully this helped you guys out. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Please leave them in the general chat. I'll answer them afterwards. And hopefully we'll see a reversal. But again, keep in mind the next couple of days, never over leverage yourself. And again, be patient, because patience is a virtue and it's what's needed mostly in the market. So manage your emotions, look at the data. It'll help you out in the future. Thanks, guys.